Howdy folks, Matt here. Currently cycling around the world from China to the USA. I'm in Vietnam, headed south towards Ho Chi Minh. I'm on a busy road, I guess. Hasn't been busy, but that's a group of trucks that are sort of calling my bluff on it not being busy. I'm cycling for a long day, and I thought I'd talk. I normally wouldn't do two videos back to back, but I just finished the inspiration series, the initial video for that, where I talked about the man on a plane, the thing that inspired me to entertain the idea of living abroad, which has been, I mean, for me, quite transformative. This series is about the things that have inspired me, because I think if you share the stories of the moments in your life that have been transformative or have inspired you to move in a better direction or a different direction or have evolved you over time, it's a shareable story that might help others discover inspiration of their own. These are sort of long-form conversations. Here we go. This episode is called Two Men on a Bike. And if you wonder why I decided or entertained the idea of cycling as my mode of transportation around the world, then you'll find out here. I had lived in China for about a year when this happened. I had a few friends. I was for the most part lonely. At that point in time, I was fixated on becoming rich and having that provide the lifestyle that I thought I wanted. One of the friends that I ended up finding was a couple, actually, a family that was living in Ningbo, but they were French. Still are French. You don't lose your Frenchness, I guess, over time. But they were living in China. They were super nice. We became fast friends, and we would spend a lot of time together. They were, at one point, traveling to Shanghai, and so I was in Shanghai at the time, and they invited me for dinner. Hello! Good, good, good. Some gas attendants over there saying hi. I'll point the camera out for this one for a little bit, because this is quite a nice road, and I think you guys would enjoy it. So I was so they were in Shanghai. They invited me to dinner, and they were entertaining some guests. Actually, they were staying at a guest's house and having dinner with their friends. When I got to the house, it was a very nice apartment. It was sort of reminded me of the flat that Tom Hanks stayed at Big, when the movie Big, when he was a kid, but he was grown into an adult, and he got that flat in Manhattan or New York City or wherever that was. But the house was lived in by a couple of guys who were also French and friends with my friends. And when we sat down to have dinner, my friend asked the guy's name was Alex, said, Alex, how's the book? And Alex said, it's going okay. I sold a few copies, but not much. And I looked at Alex and I said, what's the book? Then Alex sort of nonchalantly said that he wrote a book about a cycle trip that he took from Australia to France with his friend. This was before I was inspired to cycle around the world. It was before I had really gotten the itch for travel. It was before almost anything. It was me getting settled in China and learning how to grow my business. That was the motivation for me at the time. Travel like that. I mean, I had moved to China and been living in China for a little while. So that alone was like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm doing. But then to hear a guy open his mouth and share that he was cycling from Australia to France, to me, I was like, I didn't even know you could connect those two distances by road. Well, I mean, we all start from a naivete, right? And this was naive Matt, you know. These buses here, they transport people up and down from city to city through Vietnam, but all of them seem to have a secondary racket where they transport packages. And they'll stop alongside the road. There's a guy with a cell phone that's like a partner with the driver, and he knows a specific subset of people. He's like, Joe's up ahead, he has a package he wants delivered to, you know, to Susan down the road, you know, another city. So they'll pull off to the side, they'll move people around and put huge boxes on passenger seats and wherever they can put them, because they're trying to make as much side money as possible. It's very interesting. So, and they go quick. They care less about the passengers, they care much more about the packages, it seems so. Some buses you get on, they can be total assholes and just treat you like garbage. So Alex started to weave a tale. He talked about how he and his friend, who had never cycled any considerable distance in their life, were finishing up their life in Australia, whatever they were doing. I think they were on some sort of a work contract or something. And they wanted to do something special with their return trip to France. They had thought about it for a short while and came up with the idea of cycling. And mind you, they had very little experience cycling long distances. And they had this inspiration to travel from Australia to France, and they said they wanted to do it on bikes. So they bought 2 bikes, they cycled a portion of Australia, and then found a way to get to, I forget where. I think they somehow found their way either into Thailand or maybe even here to Vietnam or Cambodia. I remember they were on this trip for 18 months, like over a year of 100% traveling. They went through a dozen countries, and they just started talking about all the different things that they did. And I remember, like a cartoon character, Wolf, that sees a hot chick for the first time. You know, those old, the jaw drops, the tongue rolls out, the eyes are all beady-eyed. I was entranced. I had seen travelers on the TV, Discovery Channel, kind of people that have done amazing things, and they were paid, you know, to do these trips. They were sponsored by something, or, you know, they seemed not real, basically. It seemed like you're watching a TV show. It's not reality, it's a TV show. To hear a guy at the table sitting across from me in this house in Shanghai weaving this story about how they simply said, we're gonna do something amazing, and then they did it. Holy moly. Now this series is about inspiration, right? What inspired you to do certain things or become a specific sort of personality or a different type of person? So think about this. This moment, which was very brief, I don't even remember his last name. If any of you guys are in France, his name is Alex, A-L-E-X. He was traveling with his good friend. I don't remember his friend's name. They wrote a book. They traveled from Australia to France. I don't even think the book was that, like it wasn't a bestseller, but it was their story. If you guys out there can maybe dig around and find, that would be great. I remember he was a few years older than me, I guess. So right now he'd probably be 42 or something. Either way, if you boil it down and you strain off the things that inspired me hearing this conversation, it actually gave me a couple really pivotal inspirational milestones. First, it showed me that you didn't have to be an adventurer to have an adventure. The preconceived notion that an adventurer is some sort of personality type is not true. Anybody watching this video can do an amazing adventure and can push themselves to the limits and do something epic. You don't have to say, well, that's not really the type of person I am. I couldn't do that. That's so-and-so personality or such and such a personality. But what is an adventure but somebody who have had experiences. And an adventurer started just like you know, pre-adventure. They just had the inspirational moment, the transformative moment to say, I'm gonna up and do these things and nothing's gonna stop me. And that's what these guys did. They wanted to do something incredible. They wanted to have an adventure. They had time to do it, and they did it. How many people out there felt like, I would love to do an adventure like that, but you know, a plane ticket's a lot easier. And so the dream of having an adventure or doing something epic like that, which really in their talk there, I learned it was a transformative experience for them. They were changed by this trip that they had chosen, but they didn't realize how it was going to change them beforehand. You know, you don't know what's going to happen until you get on that bike, get on that boat, start that long walk on the Appalachian Trail, whatever it is. You become a different person, and if you're going with the right motivation, you become a better person. The idea of being able to just up and do something like that, a big journey, was in my mind and stayed in my mind for many years afterwards. Another thing that, there's a bug on my glasses. Another thing that came from that interaction at the dinner table there in Shanghai was the idea of cycling. I put myself in their shoes. What was the purpose of that horn? What is he honking for? No reason. The idea of cycling for me as a mode of transportation was foreign. I lived in Detroit. I was born of the Motor City. If you didn't have a car, you were an asshole. I had a bike, but I rode it a couple of blocks to school. I never rode it more than that. But here these guys wanted to do an amazing adventure, wanted to do it human powered, found a couple of bikes and did it. And they rode for 18 months afterwards. It wasn't like, let's take a bike and ride it to the next town. It was like, let's get a couple of bikes and let's ride. Let's do this thing, you know? And so the possibility of A, having an adventure, even though you're not an adventurer, and B, choosing a mode of transportation that you might not be so confident on, is we're now realities in my brain. You can become inspired and not utilize that inspiration until quite a distance in the future. Inspiration doesn't necessarily go away. Inspiration hangs with you. It sort of evolves too. It can become whatever you need it to be in order to push you through into a new idea or a new epic journey. And so meeting those guys for dinner in Shanghai was one of the milestone, transformative, inspirational moments that got me to be where I am today and continues to propel me into the future. And I am extraordinarily happy where I am doing what I'm doing. It's almost as if I found the life that I had been waiting for, but I didn't even realize I was waiting for it, you know? When the conception for the journey came around and I started contemplating how I might travel around the world, the reality of doing something like out of nowhere wasn't so scary. And the idea of choosing a mode of transportation that I might not be 100% familiar with to do such a big journey was more feasible, because I had heard somebody face to face across the dinner table that had almost the same sort of basic experience. And when you hear examples from people, flesh and blood people who are speaking to you eye to eye, it's much easier to say that's possible, right? So those are the two things I gleaned from that conversation. So The last conversation, right, if you remember the last episode in the series, I talked about how it's inspired to understand that I could move to China if I had to, and I could make it work because I met somebody who in turn had done it, who had no experience living overseas prior, ended up building the confidence within me and enabled me the justification to move to China. And you see where I'm going with this? The second story of inspiration wouldn't have happened without the first. So inspiration is a compounding thing, which is sort of why people think the power of positive thinking can get you physical things. And people say, wow, you're really lucky. You know, you're a really lucky person. Things always tend to happen to you. Well, I believe that luck is a form of perception. And if we can't perceive these inspirational moments as transformative and enabling us to move steps forward along our path, we might not realize that you need to take certain steps forward in order to achieve the things you want to achieve. So if I had not listened to that man in the plane, kept my fear of leaving America inside me, thought it's not possible for me to move to China, I would have probably gotten a real job, maybe a paycheck job like my grandpa always told me I should get. I would have never moved to China. I would have never had the conversation around that table in Shanghai to have that further inspiration. And then as you listen to more of these stories, this inspiration series, you'll see how things start to compound and how moments of inspiration join with other moments of inspiration and then start to form a narrative. Realize that even at this point, the trip around the world it wasn't in my mind at the time. It took years later for me to realize what my true desire was, which was to travel around the world. And then I had all of these moments of inspiration in my back pocket that helped me to conceive the tour that I live on today. And you might think I'm lucky, you might think, you know, I couldn't do this, but I felt like I couldn't do it either. It took moments of these sort of inspirational moments to realize that I could. It just meant I'd have to risk here or change my system in my brain of what I thought was possible. And I couldn't have done those things without having these sort of inspirational moments. And that's why I think it's important to share them. If you guys have any inspirational moments that you'd like to share, please do that in the comment section below. I'm going to continue these, and you'll see how the moments of inspiration have coalesced into where I'm at today and have helped me to believe greater things about the way the world works and have like sort of a greater hope for humanity in a lot of ways. So thanks for listening. I'm continuing to cycle south here. The road is paved, which is nice, and flat, which is nice. So take it easy, guys, and I'll catch you later. Jayoe.